I found Liberty about 6 years ago. It's interesting because I feel like Liberty found me. I was working at Kaiser, and my leader was a member of Liberty. She knew that I had had some hardships with a church that I attended prior to Liberty. They broke my heart. And at that time, I didn't want to do church. I didn't want to do church people, but there was a different level of love that she offered me. And so she introduced me to Liberty. But because I was still so brokenhearted, instead of initially going to the church, I kind of dated Liberty via podcast. And there was just something different about the message. Eventually, I got enough courage to walk into the doors of the church, just kind of as an experiment, because I felt like I had my mind made up about what church people were, that they weren't honest, they weren't sincere, they didn't have compassion, because that was my experience. And I remember waiting for the real thing to come to surface. I felt like they know I'm new. They know they haven't seen me before, so everybody's being super nice because there's a new person. We got to impress a new person so we can build membership, but it never changed. Originally, when I started coming to Liberty, because I was so afraid, I would be an 8 o'clocker. And so I'm coming at 8 o'clock, I'm coming after praise and worship because I don't want to be hugging people and all that other stuff. And then I'm going to tip out right before the altar call because I know that that's when everybody is hanging out in the lobby and talking. I don't want to be involved in any of that stuff. But after I joined the life group, everything changed. It's never easy to share. I've been through a lot of things just like most people, but I remember going through one of the most difficult phases in my life. I truly believed that I was completely and entirely healed from sexual assault. And I remember asking me to work a booth in the foyer. And I'm thinking it was for a marriage conference. And I'm like, who wants to buy tickets for a marriage conference from a super single? And so I show up and I remember, like, I don't even know why I'm here. This is ridiculous. But then I started to feel like something was coming. And I was looking around like, I feel like something is about to happen. I'm not sure what it is. And then I felt like, it's so weird. I felt like the sun got really bright. And then I'm looking at the front doors, and then the doors opened, and the young man who had raped me when I was in high school was walking through the doors. I was shocked, but I wasn't afraid. That I felt like, okay, I have been going through some healing, that I had been doing some work, that now I'm a domestic violence counselor. So I know what this looks like. I thought I was okay. I really, I thought I was okay. I thought, you got this, girl, you can handle this. But I remember one day, it was between services. And again, I was working at a booth. Seems like I'm always working at a booth. And he comes out into the hallway where I was, and he was wrecked. Like, I can see it. Like, I can't tangibly say what was wrong with him, but I can see that something was wrong. And then I felt like I had an out-of-body experience because all of a sudden I hear this voice saying, "Are you okay?" And it's my voice. And so he walks over to me, and I said, "All right, what's wrong with you? Like, there's something wrong with you." And he was like, "I'm gonna be okay." And then something clicked inside of me where I am ministering to the man who had stolen my virginity. Like, what kind of God, only God, can do something that miraculous? It's even shocking now because I remember thinking in my head, are you talking to him? Like, are you really talking to him? It's almost like, do you remember who he is? Do you remember what he did? But there was a spirit inside of me that just felt compassion. And that was just, it was such an odd, unique, so much reverence for God in that moment, because I would never, ever see myself reaching out. Like, if it was up to Rochelle alone, he would have been just wimping it to the bathroom or wherever he was going, I would have never said anything to him. But in that moment, I realized the God in me was so great that he can go beyond who I identify myself as, and the Holy Spirit will take over when it's necessary. For me, I'm a completely different person than I was before I walked into the doors of Liberty. I actually, and a lot of people that know me don't even recognize the person that I show up as today in comparison to who I was. I was afraid of my own shadow. I had the victim mentality. I felt like everybody was out to get me. But that experience, it kind of opened the doors to my own private miracle. There were some other things that ensued, and I was able to uncover that I wasn't fully healed. And during that period of time, the Holy Spirit encouraged me to have a conversation with him. And I was terrified and angry at the same time. I'd already ministered to him in the hallway. Like, what else could you possibly want from me at this time? And he said, you need to have a conversation with him. And so I called in a mutual friend and I made arrangements so that we can talk on the telephone. And for me, that was one of the most difficult things that I ever experienced in my life. It was shocking, the kind of things that he said to me. I had no expectations. I didn't care if he denied it. I didn't care if he called me outside of my name. I knew that the Holy Spirit had called me to have a conversation. So I was gonna do what the Holy Spirit told me to do, and then after that, I was gonna walk away from things. Hearing him apologize, especially working in the field of domestic violence and sexual assault, you don't ever hear a story like that. That people always say that once an abuser, always abuser, people will never change. But what I learned in this circumstance is that the redemptive power of God can do anything. And God called me to forgive him entirely. And that was the most difficult period of my life. I thought I was going insane because I was wrestling between the girl that had hated him for 30 years and this new creature of Christ that if I don't forgive, how can I expect God to forgive me? I had built a culture around hating him. I had demonized him so much that I couldn't see him as a person. And then when God gave me an opportunity to see him as a husband, to see him as a father, to see him as a beacon in the community, all of the ugliness that I saw around him completely dissipated. God completely washed away all hatred, all resentment. He calls me to this day, and I have no residual negative feelings. I have no hatred towards him whatsoever. We worship together at church. I felt like if I forgave him, does that mean what happened to me didn't happen? Does that mean that I'm letting him off the hook? No, what I've learned is being able to forgive him allowed me to be free.